Hey everyone, it's Kathy and welcome back to my YouTube channel and back into my craft room. I'm very excited today about this card that I have here in front of us. This card is so cute, and this was my very first one that I made, and I thought it turned out really well. I love this design. I think it's really cute. You can sit it up. We always call these mantle worthy when they can sit up, but it's nice for anyone to get this and they can sit it on their desk and actually enjoy the card for a few days after they get it, rather than sticking it back in an envelope. But this is the one I made. For whatever reason, I had a voiceover and it just didn't carry through. But I thought this one turned out so cute. I used a couple different stamp sets. Of course, I used the Cheerful Daisies. I knew it was daisies and I couldn't remember the Cheerful Daisies and Time Together. The only thing I used for the Time Together was this right here. These two flowers, and the sentiment right here was in that stamp set, which I love, and I think it pulled it together. This one I did a little bit different because I used the embossing folder and emboss this, and I think on this next one I'm going to change it up just a tiny bit, and we're going to do some embossing as well, and I may substitute this panel and this panel for an embossed panel. So let's get started and see where this takes us. That's always a fun thing to do. All right, the first thing that I want to show you is this is a template. Now, y'all know I love a template because it makes everything so easy. So this is my template. It is, this piece is 8.5 by 5.5, and we're scored in two places. We score at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. This is our 2 1/8. This is our 4 1/4. It is a typical size card if you fold it this way. The only difference is we've got that extra score line in it that folds this back and makes for a beautiful card. I also put in here our pieces that we would need to put on here is 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. Don't worry about trying to write all this down. I promise that all of these measurements, along with a diagram to make it very easy for you to follow, will be in the PDF tutorial. So that'll all be on the blog after this video goes up, so you'll be able to access it immediately. We have the mechanism piece, and this piece is 2 1/4 by 3 inches, and we score it in 1, 2, 3 places. And then our floating piece that will be sitting inside is 3 by 4 1/4. And our top deck piece will be 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, and we'll need to have a mat that's 3 by 4. And you'll see all of this come to life as soon as we get started. So without any further ado, I am going to pull in our pieces that we'll need. I'm going to go out and check this video to make sure that I am getting sound before I go any further. So I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and I wanted to show you, this was the embossing folder that I used, and I don't know if you can see that, but this, my light is definitely shining on it, but this is the exposed brick, and that was the one I used on this particular card. And I love the texture of it, but I thought maybe for this one I'm going to go with something a little bit less. And this is not a 3D. This is our quatrefoil tile. It is a beautiful embossing folder, but this is the difference in, you see how thick this one is? That's a 3D. This is a just a single definition embossing folder, and you have a different sandwich for this than you do for this, and I'll show you that as we get started. But I think I am going to use the quadrifoil foil. We're going to need a sheet of white cardstock, and I have some scraps of boho blue that I'm going to bring in. I'm also going to bring in my Fresh as a Daisy Designer Series paper, and I am thinking I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to cut into this piece again, and I think I might get a piece off of this corner right here, and that will be the piece that we're going to use for inside of our card. So let's get started by getting some of this stuff out of our way. I'm going to lay this over here, and this over here, and we're going to get our trimmer. And the first thing we're going to do is trim out our card base. So I'm going to lay my trimmer up here. I'm going to put this in on my 11-inch side to the top of my trimmer, and I'm going to bring it over to 5.5. What this is going to do is going to cut our sheet of paper in half, and it's going to give us a card base. So this is our card base here, 5.5 by 8.5, and we're going to do our scoring at 4.25 and 2 1/8. This other piece, we're going to use this for making our panels that we're going to need. Actually, no, we're not. We're going to use scraps for that. We are going to use that for our floating panels inside. So let's go ahead and cut those while we're here. We know that we're going to need one that's 3 by 4.25. So let's go ahead and cut our 3-inch piece off first. And it's going to need to be, and I'm looking at my template. Remember, I told you this is my bottom deck is 3 by 4.5. So I'm going to bring this over to 4.5 and give that a slice. Okay, and I'm going to lay that to the side because we know we've got that one cut. Then we need one that is, bring this piece back over. This is our card base. We need another piece that is 2 3/4. So 2 3/4 by 3 3/4. Oop, not a score, but a cut. So that panel is done. And then for that one, we're going to need a mat that is 3 by 4, and I'm going to use this 3 by, yeah, we can get it that way. So 3 inches by 4. And that's going to be our mat for that piece. Then we're going to need, from the rest of this piece, we're going to need our little mechanism, and that piece is going to be 2 1/4 by 3. So we're going to get all of our cutting done so we don't have to worry about anything else. So, and then we're going to need 2 pieces. That is, this is a scrap. Let's see if we can get okay, we can get it this way. We're going to need these to be 1 7/8. We're going to need 2 of these. By 5 1/4. So we need one more of those. So 1 7/8. By 5 1/4. There's those 2 panels. So I think we've got everything. Oh, we need to cut this piece. So this one I'm going to cut, I'm going to turn it around. I need it to be 4 inches, so I'm going to cut 4 inches off at this side. And I need this piece to be 5 1/4. So I'm going to cut it off right to here and get that 5 1/4. And this is going to be for our inside panel. Okay, I think we have all of our cutting done. So now we need to bring in, and since I've got 2 scores to do, I'm going to bring in my scoreboard, my Simply Scored scoring tool. I love using this. I think it gives us a beautiful scoring. So the first thing we're going to do is score our card itself. And remember, I told you we got to score it in 2 places. So I'm going to use my stylus that comes with the board, with the scoreboard. We're going to come in and we're going to score at 2 1/8. So that's 2 1/2. 2 1/8 is that first little notch, or the first little line past the 2. So we're going to give that a good score. And then we're going to come over and score at 4 1/4. Now I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to fold into that score line. See right here, we're going to fold that over, give it a crease. This is where you want to bring your bone folder in, because you definitely want to fold that and give a good burnish. Then we're going to turn it over and we are going to fold in, but then back out. And then crease that down really well. Okay, those are the folds on that one. Now we need our little piece that measures 3 by 2 1/4. On the 3-inch side, we're going to need to score this at, and again, I'm bringing over my template. Okay, so 3/4, which is right there, 1 1/2, right here, and 2 1/4 right there. That's all the scores we need to make. So now we are done with our scoring. We're done with our cutting. So now we need to see, we're going to do some embossing. So I like to get everything done. I'm going to bring up my embossing machine, and the 2 panels that we cut, the 2 that are 1 7/8 by 5 1/4, we're going to emboss these. And remember, I said I'm going to use the quadrifoil embossing folder. I'm going to open it up, and you see where this line is right here. See that dark line? That is like almost like a little registration line where you can line your pieces up and ensure that your embossing is going to be nice and straight. So now I'm going to bring in my number 1 plate, and for a single definition folder, not a 3D, but our regular embossing folders, you're going to need your number 1 plate and then your 2 cut plates. Nothing else. The adapter goes away, everything else goes away. Number 1, a number 3, and then a number 3 on top. And all we're going to do now is crank that through. Just like that. So now those are done, and I don't think we're going to need this machine for anything else, so I'm going to go ahead and take it away. And you can see I got a little bit askew, so let's see if I can straighten out everything. My camera didn't move, but my mat down here on my cutting board did. So let's pull those out. They are beautifully embossed. Look how rich that looks. Isn't that pretty? Love that embossing folder. Alright, so now that our embossing is done, we are going to bring over our card base. Now this is one thing I do like to do. I like to come back in with my bone folder and really crease this down. I like to open this up and give this another crease. The more that you crease this card, the better it's going to lay once you start putting your panels on. So I like to make sure I get everything going really well before I actually bring in my pieces. Now I'm going to use liquid glue on this because I want to have a little wiggle room, because with that white border I want to make sure that my edges look really nice and neat. So I'm going to bring in some liquid glue, and I like using liquid glue when I use embossing folders because it gets into those little nooks and crannies and just gives you a better chance of adhering. So I'm just going to go all the way down to the bottom like that, and then I'm going to be very cautious when I put this down and try to make sure that I'm getting everything nice and straight. And that looks pretty. Then I'm going to open it up and I'm going to do the same thing here on this panel, and let's go ahead and get that done. And now we're going to put this panel in right about here. Again, you want to try to make sure you got your borders nice and even. So pretty. Isn't that gorgeous already? So now we're going to take that piece of designer series paper, and for this I am going to use Stampin' Seal. And I like the Stampin' Seal Plus. I think you get much better control over it, and to me it just is a better adhesive. It is a little bit more expensive than the regular, but I think it's so worth the extra price because it doesn't pull and string like the other does. So I'm gonna, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Uh-oh. See if we can pull that back up. Okay. I am gonna very carefully get this in just like that. Give it a good press. I'm going to even take my bone folder and go over it. It looks like it wants to lift right there just a bit. It's okay. We got it. Alright, so now we need to bring our panels in. It's time to do some stamping. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to lay this all over to the side, and this is our floating panel. This is the piece that's going to go in first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the stamp set that I used for this, and that is the Time Together. And I'm using this little flower, and I'm using this sentiment. So I'm going to take out my flower, and I want to center this up on the bottom. I'm going to take out my sentiment, and let's go ahead and stamp first. So I'm going, this is a little askew. I hope y'all like my little panel that I made with my Kathy's Random Acts of Stampin'. I have our host code that will take us through the rest of May, and that's this number right here. It will also be in the description on the video. If you place an order with me for any amount up to $150, please use that host code. It helps me earn free stuff to give back to y'all. And also there is my website if you want to go and place an order with me. I would so appreciate your business. I am working really hard to build my business and my channel, so every little bit helps, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. All right, I'm going to pull out a stamp block, and I'm going to go ahead and pick this up, and I want to stamp this in the Night of Navy ink. Yeah, let's go ahead and do this in Night of Navy. I think that'll be really pretty. And I'm going to stamp that right about here. And I'm going to stamp it one more time. So I'm just going to turn my paper around. Of course, I got my fingers in ink. Nothing new for me. And I'm going to stamp that right there. Beautiful. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment in the boho blue. So I'm going to grab another stamp block. And I like to line my stamp up on my grid paper. Getting my stamp on my block nice and straight can help me get my sentiment on straight, and then hopefully get it straight on my paper. Very pretty. So I'm going to come back in and I'm going to color those flowers just a tiny bit using some Stampin' Blends. So I have Granny Apple Green and Boho Blue. I'm going to keep it really simple because these are pretty simple little flowers. So let's do a little bit of coloring. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to color with my light Boho Blue. And I'm using the bullet tip, and I just want to go around the flower, putting color all down in the middle, really blending that color so that I don't have any. That's the great thing about using the Stampin' Blends. The Stampin' Blends are alcohol markers, and you get a nice, beautiful, even color when you use your Stampin' Blends over our Stampin' Right markers. Now, the Stampin' Right markers have their place, but if I could only afford one, I would definitely get the Stampin' Blends because they just color beautifully. Isn't that pretty? So I'm going to come back in. Let's go ahead and do this one too while we're at it. Then we can come back in with both, and I'll show you how to get a little bit more detail. These are what I would call a flat image stamp. So let's just continuing in my coloring. I always get quiet when I color. It's like my quiet time. Alright, that looks really good. So I'm going to pop that back on. I'm going to grab the dark boho blue, and I'm just going to come into this middle and put a little bit of the dark in there. Just like that. Then we're going to take the brush tip of the light, and we're going to come back and just pull that color down like that. And then as that dries, it's going to have a beautiful look there. So I'm going to go in with my dark greeny apple green, and I'm going to outline my leaves, and then I'm going to go across these lines just a little bit. This will give our leaves a little more dimension. And when you're outlining, stay within the inside of your piece rather than going to the outside. You think of outline, but I like to call it inline. So just stay within the perimeters of your inside. And remember, alcohol markers will bleed out, so that's another reason to stay on the inside. Something like that. Then we're going to come back with the white, and I'm going to just color that in like that. And there's our coloring. So this piece is done beautifully. Now we need to work on this piece, and this piece is going to be a little bit more complex, but not hard, because our stamps are going to make everything easy. So here's my stamp pads that I plan on using. I'm going to grab some stamp blocks, and we're going to use the small flower, the detail, the small one that will color it, a little thing that will give us that little inside, and our stem. And for this one, we're going to use the sentiment that says, "Your friendship means everything." So those are the ones we're going to use. Oh, and the leaf. So let's go ahead and get everything loaded up. So here's my stem. So that's loaded. We need a couple of blocks for the petals. One for our detail. And one for our color. We're going to need one for our sentiment. And we're going to need a couple of small ones for our little middle, and a leaf. So now that we've got all of our stamps loaded, we can go ahead and start with this. And I'm going to start off with my stem, because I want my stem to come down about to here. So we're going to use our garden green for this. And we're going to stamp up from the bottom corner up to about here. Okay, that's our green. Let's go ahead and put our leaves on since we have the green out. So I'm going to tap my leaf in. I want to zoom y'all in just a little bit. Something like that. And I'm going to put a leaf right here. And maybe one coming off right about here. And I didn't get all of that ink off of that one, so we're going to try. That worked out perfect. So now I can close up my green ink and set those over there. Now we need to do our outline of our daisy, and that's the one that has all these lines in it. If you notice, the other one doesn't have lines, it's flat. So we're going to do this one first, and I'm going to do my outline in my Night of Navy. So ink it, and I'm going to bring it so that stem is going right there between those petals, just like that. Then we can, let's go ahead and put our sentiment on while we have this ink out. No, I'm going to do that in boho blue. I'm going to do the boho on that, so we can close that one up. Let's go ahead and grab the boho blue and our detailed stamp. And now what we want to do is get this blue right over top of our petals. This is the beauty of two-step stamping. Isn't that gorgeous? Now I'm off just a little bit, but that's okay. It doesn't, that doesn't bother me. Let's do our sentiment in the boho blue, and that's going to come right about up here. Maybe let's change it up and put it over here. I love that. So now we're done with the boho blue. We have our copper clay, and we're going to use it for our little flower center. So I'm going to stamp that up, and I'm going to come in right about there and stamp that. Isn't that pretty? Now I'm going to use a little linen thread, and we are going to tie a bow. Just a very simple little loopy bow. So I'm doing the bunny ear bow. Like that, and then we're going to pull those tails and make it smaller. And I'll bring those tails down to about there. And I'm going to snip those off. Something like that. And then I'm going to use a glue dot and my take your pick tool, and I want to just roll this on the paper. I'm just taking and rolling that up until it comes up onto my piece, and then I'm going to roll that in my finger. And I'm going to stick it right about here. And then I'm going to just stick that bow right into that glue dot and give it a couple of good presses. And that will adhere it, and it will also take the sticky off so we don't have any stickiness showing there. So now remember this blue, the balmy glue pattern or mat that we cut. We're going to adhere this piece to that. And for that I'm going to use liquid glue. Just like that. And we're going to put this down, getting a nice even border all the way around. And that looks really pretty. Now if that bothers you where it's not filled in right there, you can come in with your balmy blue. Just like that. Not a problem whatsoever. So now we're ready to put our mechanism in. We got our panels done, and now all we need is our mechanism. Now for your mechanism, all you're going to do is fold it and burnish it, and you're going to fold it and then you're going to fold it again. That is all you need to do for this piece. Now fold it in half, and this piece is going to go into our card right here. So we only need adhesive on these outer pieces. So I'm going to use some tear and tape. Tear and tape works really good for me. You know it's a really strong adhesive, and I'm putting it all the way to the outer edge. And I'm going to get my little block that I used for tearing that off, and I'm going to put another piece right here, not quite to the fold line, but close to it. Turn it over and do the same thing on that other outer piece. These outer pieces is what's going to be glued down. So I use this piece to kind of burnish that down as well. So it's like a 2-for-1. And then another piece right here. And that's all we need as far as our tape goes. So I like to go back over it and just give it a good burnish. And I'm going to take the backers off on one side, just one side to start with. And now I'm going to lay this in about where I know I want it to sit, and you want it about midway. Now you can measure this if you want to. I don't think it's that important. I'm just going to fold that panel over on top of that, and then when it comes up, you're going to have this. Then we're going to take our backer off of this piece, and we're simply going to fold the back part of this card over onto it. Give it a good press. And when you finish, this is what you're going to have. This little panel that's going to allow us to put this panel right about there, and I'm going to use liquid glue for that. So just put some glue on that little piece that's raised up. And then we can set this in exactly where we need it and press it down. Just like that. And that's our floating panel. Now, all we have to do is put this piece down like that, making sure that we have a good place there, that this is bordering this perfectly. See what I mean? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on half of this. And now I can set this down right about here. And there we go. So all we have left to do is embellish this card, and we have finished. So I am going to take some gems and some of our butterflies right here. And I love embellishing a card like this because it is just beautiful. So I am going to, I want to put about 3 of these little gems across here. So I'm going to start out with the big one. Let's put a blue one right there. And then the next size, maybe right here. And then we're going to get one of the tiny ones, and we're going to put it maybe right there. And you can see that's going to help our eye to travel down the length of this card, just like that. Then I want to take a couple of these cute little butterflies. So what flower is not perfect without a butterfly fluttering around it? So I'm going to put one right there, and a smaller one right there. And that is all we're going to need on this card. Isn't that beautiful? Do you love it as much as I do? Here is our cute little card that we finished, and I love the way it turned out. Isn't that just beautiful? So cute. So I'm going to bring in the other ones that I did. This is the one that I had originally recorded, but I really like this one. I love using the boho blue panel on it. I think everything coordinates really good with that paper in the background. I love that daisy paper in the background. And then of course here was my very first one and my prototype, which I love that one too. So if you make this card, I would love for you to share it over on our Facebook group. The link for our Facebook group is in the video, is under the video. You can also find it on my blog. I'll have this along with a PDF for the measurements and the layout and everything. So thanks so much for tuning in. God bless and keep you. And as I always say in closing, let everything that you do and say bring glory to our Father in heaven. He is so worthy. So until next time, God bless and keep you. Bye-bye.